Just to briefly here with all of you, thank you for being here and your testimony. CHIPS is always a hot topic of mine on this, and the cuts to CHIPS this year are very concerning. If you could, just maybe elaborate a little bit more on the impacts of what you see with these cuts to CHIPS to local roads budgets, which is so critical, and particularly Gerry with the number of towns. And I mean, your organization represents towns larger than most cities in this state, but also towns that are vast and lightly populated. And some towns, a lot of which I represent in the 7 counties of the 58th Senate District, the only budget they have for their roads is the CHIPS money they get. So if you could just elaborate for everybody here just how important that CHIPS funding is.
Thank you for that question, Senator. CHIPS is so critical for our communities, our towns. And as you stated, your facts are correct. Towns are responsible for a great majority of the centerline highways throughout the state. Over half the state's population lives in towns. And these roadways have to be maintained for the delivery of service and getting people to school. And the need is critical because the roads haven't been maintained. And what happens is when the roads aren't maintained properly, there's more accidents, more delays. And most times when I was a member of the town board, the people who would come up to me and talk to me about town issues, 9 times out of 10, it was always about, thanks for making that highway improvement. Thanks for, painting the lines. Thanks for repaving that road. It's essential. It's just not a request. It's essential that we protect our roads, protect our communities. Thank you for that question.
Thank you. Either of you two would like to add on
I'll
that?
just reiterate the concerns I've heard among our membership is really the fact that because of the ADA requirements, which everyone wants to abide by, we have nothing against curb ramps. We want to do that. But the fact that these requirements have ramped up, that the CHIPS funding is just not enough. I mean, we had our conference yesterday, and I actually asked the question, how much can you actually do with your CHIPS? And they were like, oh, a quarter of our Main Street in some of these smaller villages, because everything's just so expensive. So I know for our members, any reductions are going to be devastating, but what we'd really like to see is an increase.
Yeah, I think particularly with the inflation and costs of supplies is for sure. Steve, do you want anything on that?
Well, you have been, Senator, a champion of CHIPS, and I want to thank you and the legislature, the Assembly and the Senate, for always advocating for local governments. That's often the only revenue stream that we have to fix our roads and bridges. Counties are responsible for about 9,000 bridges in the state. And like the roads, the bridges are in constant need of structural repair. The CHIPS program is the only program that I can think of that is the most successful program that encompasses the 1,605 local governments in the history of the state. There's no other program that works and unites us together and treats us fairly. And it should be doubled in size because of its benefit in the communities, of fixing the roads and bridges, and also helps the private sector with all of the industry, that's jobs that are created for this, for the men and women working out there on the roads and fixing the bridges. It has an exponential effect in the engineering community and our products and materials. So we greatly appreciate your being a constant champion on that. It needs to be increased. You could take water and sewer. Assemblywoman Lupardo, Senator Hinchy has a bill to do a CHIPS program for drinking water and wastewater. Right. It makes sense. The formula works, and I would ask that you continue to put an emphasis on it.
We're certainly looking at that, and I know Senator Tedesco had sponsored something like that a few years ago as well, and certainly very supportive. But I agree with you that the CHIPS is really one of the most fundamentally fairly distributed programs in the state because it's per lane mile. It gets distributed. No matter whether you're a county, a town, a city, you get a pro rata share based on the number of miles you have. So I don't see any more fairly distributed program in the state. Thank you.